welcome back to another episode here on the Inkwell Lounge. I'm your host, Chris, aka Questing for Lore, and then this week I'm back with the latest in our Emerging Illumineers series, focusing on up-and-coming members of the Disney Lorcana community. In this episode, I sat down for a chat with Erick, and we talked some about the content he makes over on his channel, GranolaTCG, his experience balancing life with family and content creation, and the Lorcana community as a whole. Let's get to it. Well, hey, Erick, how's it going?
Good. Thank you so much for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you for being on. I really appreciate it. Appreciate you taking the time tonight. I'm sure you got a busy schedule between making your own content, regular life, family life, all that kind of good stuff. So
yeah,
I definitely appreciate it.
Family life's a lot right now. We just had our third baby, third girl.
Oh my gosh.
And so we are, videos have been kind of put on halt for a little minute.
Yeah.
So that's why I've been, putting a little bit more of these kind of conversational stuff out. But yeah, it's a busy time at home right now. So, but it's a great time. It's just hard.
Oh my gosh.
A lot of sleep missing right now.
Yeah, no. Oh, trust me, I totally get it. Mine have not been that age for a very long time, but I remember it's a lot. Yeah. And ours were like 3 years apart, so we had a little bit of a buffer.
Yeah,
well,
we have a 7-year-old, a 4-year-old, and now a 3-month-old, and so we had a pretty big gap between the last one, but summer break on top of it's been fun to say the least.
Oh yeah. Well, congratulations, I will say,
Thank you.
A little after the fact, but yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely, it's interesting. I talk to a lot of, other content creators and they'll have younger kids or, even kind of like middle school-ish kind of stuff. But it seems like regardless, there's always stuff with kids, and you kind of have to find that right balance for, what works at the time. And, anyway, yeah. We'll talk a little bit more about that after a little bit.
For sure.
So one of the first things I love to do with my guests is find out how they got into Lorcana, how they started with the game, have they played any games before, any other TCGs, all that kind of good stuff. So fill me in.
Yeah. Lorcana was kind of a happy accident for me. I didn't know anything about the game whatsoever until I was going to Gen Con as a birthday present on the release of Lorcana. A buddy of mine, he really wanted me to go, so he got me some tickets, and we flew up there. And his wife was like, "Hey, go get me some of these, trading card game that's coming out." And I didn't know anything about it, and there was just so much hype around at Gen Con. If anyone kind of knows the story there, it was the first time Gen Con ever allowed overnight lines or anything like that for a release of a game, and so Lorcana just kind of broke Gen Con, and I was lucky to be there. Ended up some of my buddies, like, we pulled some of the first enchanteds that ever were pulled in the game, and literally one of my friends that was there sold an enchanted genie for like $4,000 on eBay, which at this point is not anywhere close to that cost, but it was
but still at the time.
Yeah. So we were hooked. It paid for the trip, and we got really into the game. And so I, kind of dove in playing it locally a lot. Played a lot for set 1 and set 2, and then some family stuff went down, and time got really tight. And so I kind of took a break from Lorcana until set 5. Set 5, really at the end of set 5, so my buddies that continue to play the game, they invited me to come to a set champs. So I picked up a Blurple deck at the time, and ended up making top 8. And I was like, oh man, I forgot how much I like this game. And so dove back in kind of after set 5. With that meant I missed a lot of like the season 1, competitive season. And so that drought began to happen kind of in Lorcana, and I just wanted to fill some of my time with it and fall in love with the game some more. And that was a lot of like where the content creation started with the game. Was I want to do more with it, and I want to get into this game more and continue to express myself in it. It is really my first truly competitive TCG that I've played. I grew up, playing Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh, just from watching the shows just as a kid, and love the TV shows. I'm wearing even like a little Bulbasaur sweater, but
Hey, there you go.
you know,
Nice.
I love Pokemon. It's just a part of my childhood. I love the video games the most as a kid. And then, did some collecting of cards. And the channel that I have, even, it really started with some Pokemon content, because I was collecting Pokemon at the time. And then it kind of transitioned into more Lorcana focus. But Lorcana is the first game I've ever really, I would say, tried to be good at and tried to like learn how to play really, really well. When all those other TCGs, it was more like the side content that drove it for me, like the animes or the video games and those kinds of things.
Okay. Very cool. Yeah, I talked to a lot of people that's kind of their background. They came from Pokemon, they came from Yu-Gi-Oh, and and then it's more of like a lot of them I talked to, they're like, yeah, we played the game, but it's more like we put down a card, it had higher numbers. That means we won.
Yeah,
It's like,
for
okay,
sure.
sure. That's,
I didn't know how to
but
play Pokemon until like this year, and I've owned
oh,
so many
really?
Pokemon cards, and so totally get it.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I get it, they have those, the IP, the cartoons and
Mhm.
everything and movies and whatever else they, build around it. So it does have that kind of history
Mhm.
around it. And I feel like Lorcana kind of brings that to the table as well,
Yeah.
right? You have the whole Disney like IP, the whole ecosystem
Mhm.
really around it. It's not just about like movies, it's about TV shows, it's about just general animation kind of stuff.
Mhm.
We got like an Oswald card.
Yeah.
I mean, that's way back,
Yeah.
that's deep cut kind of stuff. um but I feel like Lorcana is in a good space to kind of take advantage of that same kind of thing, and kind of build on that fandom, like
Mhm.
how the Pokemon, the Pokemon cartoons and everything, or anime, sorry, correct myself.
No, that's fine. I would say
How that
Pokemon was
kind of,
definitely a cartoon at the time for sure.
okay, well, okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. Some people are a little more picky about
Yeah.
that, I will say, but they had that foundation to
Mhm.
build on, and I feel like there's so much of Disney that and it's been around for so long, right? You have people that have watched Disney movies since the 50s when they first kind of started out, and they're still coming out.
Yeah.
And we're getting new sets with newer movies. We got Toy Story for Wilds,
Mhm.
we're getting Monsters Inc. for for Attack of the Vine, and
Yeah.
there's just so much of that comes with being Disney, and like the history that a lot of people have with the brand and with the movies and how they identify with them. I think there's a lot of that brings people into the game.
100%. I agree so much. I mean, there's continual rollouts of more IP from Pixar and Disney and stuff like that. That's going to keep bringing in people that love those things. Then there's like something that TCGs used to do that no one's doing now, is like you go to a movie and you're getting a card, and I
Yep.
think that's
Yep.
really pivotal. It's like they have an availability. Like, I hate using like marketing words, but like they have the ability to market in a way that no one's doing anymore in TCGs, and I think it's going to spread faster. I mean, I felt the boom very recently at the parks when they did that event. I believe in the spring, that basically there was collection quest stuff going on, and it was at
Yeah.
Epcot's and stuff, and
Hmm.
so many people jumped into the hobby because of that event, and it was just at a physical place, and it wasn't all over the country. So I agree that like the IP is super strong. I mean, we all love it. That's why we play this game.
Yeah.
We could play mechanics of a bunch of other games, but we love Disney characters and all those kinds of things. And so I agree 100%.
Yep. Yeah, it's I love that you brought up the physical aspect of it too, right? Because it's one thing to have like you've got the movies, you got the TV shows and everything that you watch, but and to have the cards, that relate to it, but to have that kind of a community level event to where you're really trying to reach out to people that may not be TCG players. They don't necessarily have to be a player.
Hmm.
The game by itself is super collectible.
Yeah.
And so just bringing those people in to say, we have this thing, all this stuff is unique, all the art and everything
Yeah.
in the game is all unique. And to be able to kind of help them understand, how special it is,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because all of us players, we know, right?
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
we get it. But to draw in that audience that's a little bit outside the norm, and it's Disney fans,
Mm-hmm.
and Disney fans love Disney stuff. So
Yep.
it's like the match made in heaven,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, for 100%. I mean, like I think of, just so many people. Like this is kind of way off topic, but my dad would sell stuff as a reseller on Amazon,
Mhm.
and he would go into like Disney parks and buy like exclusive things that would come out. And he's basically, if it was in trading card world, he'd be a scalper, but he was taking
Yeah.
product like, it'd be like a Starbucks mug that had like Disney princesses on it, and it was an exclusive one and that kind of thing. And if you don't live anywhere near these places, you couldn't get one. And so he would,
Yep.
go and basically resell these. And so the market of like Disney stuff just across the board everywhere is so strong. And to think like TCGs do that on their own, like
Yep.
the fact that Yu-Gi-Oh still exists is like crazy, like they haven't had a good TV show in forever, and like,
Oh my
and
gosh,
yet
yeah.
it's still like a thing, and
Yep.
it's like, okay, so TCGs can exist and thrive. And Disney, you mentioned the art. I mean, it's so great that they didn't just like take clips from like the movies and use
Yeah.
that as the artwork. I think that's like foundational of like what gives people even more excitement about this stuff is like, I mean, everyone talked about when you first saw Cinderella stout hearted or whatever, like, all like in armor and everything. You're like, holy cow, that's super cool. And
Yeah.
that like,
Yep.
and that kind of
Wait a minute.
reimagining is
What
amazing.
is this?
Yeah.
Hang on. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, totally. I love that they even, did that stuff early on,
Hmm.
right? It wasn't like, oh, we're going to do a couple of sets and it's going to be like the traditional stuff. They were like, nope, straight out of the gate.
Yep.
We're going to like really just wow people and really, make them like think twice, and like look at it and be like, oh, well, maybe I do need to kind of check into this game.
Yeah.
And there's so many people that are like Disney fans that come in and say, okay, this is kind of fun,
Mhm.
because they keep it approachable. They keep it to where it's easy to pick up.
Yep.
It's difficult to master,
Mhm.
which is nice to kind of have
I
the,
love it. Yeah.
the dual sides there. Um, but the focus on keeping it to where anybody can come in and pick it up, and just start playing.
Yeah.
Now, they may not win a ton, but
For
they
sure.
kind of understand the rules. They kind of understand how to play it. Um, and then some of those people move on and they really start getting invested in it.
Mhm.
They start making content. They start becoming, more competitive with their play and really, really digging into the community, which is really cool to see how the overall, worldwide, obviously we've gotten so many more places that get cards
Mhm.
now, but to see how explosive the growth has been in this community over the last, I mean, it's only what, 2.5 years in. So
And we're still on the front end. Like
yeah.
at first I felt like maybe I'm on, kind of a late comer, when I started making some videos. I was like, there's been people that have been here since like years before the game even launched. And it's like, man, we're still in the like beginning years of this thing. I mean, I'm in my day job. If someone, I've been on staff there for 10 years, but if someone's been around for 5, I'm like, you're practically a founding member. Like, and it's,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that I feel that's very true. Still, like we're still on a bit of the ground level for this game. If you were to think of, oh, I've been playing Magic the Gathering since 2 years it came out or something, like they'd be like, no, you were from the beginning, and so
Yeah.
like we're still very much at the beginning of this game, and it's doing so well. The art's
Hmm.
gotten only better. Like it's been just doing great. And I do think it's got a lot more room for growth.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, one of the things I love the most is, you mentioned the art. is the fact that they, it's, and I don't know how this is in other games, like Yu-Gi-Oh or Pokemon or something. I'm sure they change it up a little bit every once in a while for like the special cards. Um, but I love that, like, for every set that we get, the Enchanteds and now Iconics and Epics and everything they're different than the
Mhm.
previous sets. They some of them kind of look similar, because the sets are kind of along the same theme.
Mhm.
But to have something that's that much of a difference between the sets is
Yeah.
really cool.
They're taking
We
stylistic like decisions. Like they go, hey, we use this particular style to influence every card. Not, as nerds, you can be like, that's super cool, but also it just creates uniqueness more and more for these
Mhm.
cards, which is great. Because there might be a set that you're like, I don't necessarily love this art style or something of that nature, but it's like they're not getting boring with it. They're
Yeah.
not just copy pasting, which is awesome.
Yep. Yep. And switching out art directors or the ones that are for like the Enchanteds and
Hmm.
everything is such a cool idea to me, to have like a fresh voice, a fresh perspective on it. They all kind of align to the same kind of style,
Hmm.
for each of the sets. But it's always really cool to see the differences in, because we've gotten some that were like a little more on the kind of realism side, some of them that look like, cut out paper, some,
Hmm.
some of them that are little like they've added, different kinds of foiling and everything
Yeah.
to them now, just to really make them pop. And I appreciate the work that they put in on those to
Yes.
really make them something that, not only is it great for us as a community to have these amazing cards to look at and enjoy opening and everything, but also for the collector market.
Hmm.
You've got the people that, I mean, we saw what happened with the buzz,
For sure.
from
Yeah.
Wilds Unknown. I mean,
Yeah.
that's absolutely insane what happened. But, um, to have it to where there's multiple people across the spectrum that the same cards appeal to for very different reasons.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. I mean, it is like they've just been leveling up consistently
Mm-hmm.
with it. And that's been
Yep.
very enjoyable to see. I remember when I think it was set 5, when the legendaries got the like kind of embossing bump up,
Oh yeah, yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
I thought that was so cool. Like I was just like,
yeah.
and it was so unnecessary. Like no one really even asked for it or was begging for it to happen, but they gave that, and and I love that they're like continuing to do that. How can I make this a better product? And a lot of times you look at certain things and they'll just kind of stay stale, or they'll ride the wave. And
Hmm.
and I feel like they're doing a great job of continuing to try and make better products, in a lot of ways, which is really encouraging.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And besides that, also encouraging the community around it.
Hmm.
They for a while there, it was not the greatest of communications between Ravensburger and
There
the
was a dark
community.
period, yeah.
There there was a little
The
bit of a dark
silent
period, yes.
months.
But they stepped up, right? They have the weekly lore cast. They're a little bit more vocal about what's changing with the game. Any kind of like rules updates and everything, they're very like they really try to share it out there with the community.
Yeah.
And there's not going to be people that are going to be happy 100% of the time, but it is good to see that they're making choices, that they're trying to grow the game,
Hmm.
that they're being supportive of the community and actually listening to the community for what we say. We're like, yes, we need more feedback, we need more information. They stepped up and did it, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah,
it's really cool
and they're
to
like
see.
listening when they like they're not doing things when we tell them to. Like I thought about dogs.
Right.
Like everyone was like ban dogs, ban dogs, ban dogs, and
Yeah.
like the last like 3 big events, dogs didn't win, and so
Yeah.
like they what's cool about that is like they're listening and they're taking the things that are like that matter, and then also they're gonna stand their ground on something when it's like important like that, like in a game balancing standpoint. Like dogs was not unbeatable, but
Yeah.
it did some busted things against the decks that everyone was playing, and you had to start playing some new stuff. And I appreciate like they're not just bending over for the community either. Like they're doing both, and like they're trying to make the best decisions for the game. I think, there's plenty of stuff. Like, I really look forward to the future of the game, especially like the competitive seasons upcoming, because I think they learned a lot and they were kind of locked in to some stuff that they couldn't change much of. Just when you start signing contracts and things like that, like you're kind of just, this is how it's going to roll out. But it just seems like only up from here. And yeah, I agree. They're listening great. Greg Tito has been doing a great job. I knew him from so I played Dungeons and Dragons for years, and he did a Dungeons and Dragons like podcast for Wizards of the Coast every single week, and that's where he came from. So he came from, like, I used to listen to his podcast over there, and then he came over here, and I was like, sweet. So it was cool to like know him ahead of time. I don't know him personally, but to like know of him ahead of time. So he didn't seem like a brand new face. It felt like, oh, cool, now he's on this other game I love.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other like really cool part of this community is, we have so many people that have come in from other games, from other like, bubbles, and they all come in and they all love playing the game. They love the community. There's just such a wide range of people that have drawn to this game that it's really cool to see. You've got, like we were talking about a little bit before, you've got, content creators that make like, the deck tech kind of stuff or the gameplay kind of stuff. You've got some of the people that, are more on the, like the casual side. They make, funny memes and, little clips and, we've all seen Rebecca Quest stuff.
Yeah.
And, but it's great to see that you have, that, and you have everything in between, and it kind of, I feel like it speaks to the diversity of the wider community, the fact that just the content creation community has that much diversity in it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like, it is very beautiful, like, to see. Like, it's the community is, I mean, inspiring in a lot of ways. Like, I mean, just even at my locals, the variety of people that I've become friends with now that I wouldn't have been friends with outside of this game is amazing. And then when I go to some of these bigger events, when I've been to a couple DLCs, and just the sheer diversity of people, like, just, from ages to, all kinds of things. It's just beautiful to see like something like this bringing everyone together to play a fun game. And trading card games have not had the best past of community in some aspects, and so this feels like a beacon of light, in the TCG space, and it's kind of the nature of the game. I feel like it calls you to more, being the IP of Disney, that we don't really, you don't see a world where people in the community would be super stoked about someone like flipping a table or whatever. You just feel like that's just not what we are here. And so I think that's the beauty of it, is we may have possibly the sweetest, nicest, kindest TCG community out there. I think we do. I would be willing to go to the table for it, but it is a beautiful thing. And honestly, like, you make videos, I make videos. That is you're putting yourself out there for criticism and stuff like that when you do these things. And I mean, just nothing but amazing positive comments, just great people that are grateful for the content, even if they have a critical note or something like that. And I don't know if you see that. I mean, I haven't made content for other things, but from my experience on the internet, it hasn't been so positive.
Yeah, I think, in other communities, it's a little hit and miss.
Yeah.
I definitely agree. There have been some that have gotten a bad reputation. And we've got some people that have come over from those communities, and, people are people, right?
Yeah.
There's always going to be people that, have opinions, people that don't agree, people,
For sure.
But what you really hope for is that the wider community kind of, helps not negate that kind of thing, but helps them understand, well, okay, so let me say this. The wider community kind of understands that, they have a different opinion,
Mm.
about things than maybe a large majority of the community does. But they need to understand that it's not like, you don't need to shut that stuff down.
Yeah.
It needs to be like, yes, they're saying this, they have criticisms about things, um, and let's listen to them and let's take those criticisms in as, some kind of an input and say, okay, maybe there is, some kind of grain of truth to this,
Yeah.
hour-long rant that somebody posted on YouTube or
Yeah.
something. You know, just because they don't agree with what the wider community thinks doesn't mean they're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think it's really easy to forget that kind of thing
Yeah.
and just kind of gloss over some of it and be like, oh, let's just kind of ignore that person and, maybe it'll
Right.
go away.
Well, and we
Because,
know
everybody
like
deserves
there's
to
the
have their
silent
voice be
majority,
heard,
right?
right?
Like we know that there's like the general current of the community is like in this positive nature. And of course there's always like negative Nancy's and things of that nature, doom and gloomers, like that happens a lot.
Yeah.
But honestly, like it's not a vast majority of the player base. It's like it is typically just like in any media outlet or something like that. It's like the minority groups are going to be the loudest speaking ones.
Yeah.
And if you spend enough time on Twitter or X, you'll see enough negative opinions of the
Yeah.
game. But you're right. The criticisms, I mean, that is how the game grows and like gets better.
Mm-hmm.
So like there is an aspect of like, hey, we should express frustrations. I mean, that's how Bucky got nerfed, and things like that. Like we people should share discontentments when they have them.
Mm-hmm.
I've shared them on my channel, but always in a more positive criticism type light, and hopeful light is always my goal. But yeah, but I think the doom and gloomers and all that, I'm like, man, it's still like such a minority group of like the people who love this game and are positive about this game and enjoy this game, and so I do think we still have such a positive group in this space. And even if you just go to a DLC, it's like there might be two doom and gloomers in the room and there's 1998 super stoked to be there people that love
Yeah.
like that
Yeah.
this game exists,
Yeah.
and you'll see which one's loudest on Twitter.
Yeah. Yeah. I know, right? It always seems to be that way. They make changes, they make choices, and there's always going to be people that are not happy with it. And that's
For
okay.
sure.
That's great. I mean, it's, their opinions are as valid as anybody else. So,
Hmm.
but, so you mentioned, some of your opinions on your channel. I'm curious, you kind of said, oh, you started it up to be a little bit more involved in the game when it wasn't necessarily a time where you could actually play and everything. What did that first step look like? Like, why did you create the channel? Why did you finally put out that first video? What was your
Hmm.
motivation there?
Yeah. I mean, I've had a background in doing some video stuff in my past. In youth ministry, I would do some videos, baptism videos and things like that, or camp videos. And so I always I just enjoy making things personally. I'm a woodworker. I love cooking. I love fixing my vehicles, and like I just love taking like raw materials and putting them together to like make something. And so that just is something that I love to do, and video is another form of that. And so it's just this thing that like I love when I learn a new video editing technique and all that kind of stuff. So that's where a lot of like why YouTube, because I prefer long form video. Like that's a big preference of mine. And I like doing edited type stuff. But time can be very hard to do those kinds of things. But my favorite part is usually not shooting the video. It's sitting at the computer editing, because that's where I can, really begin to cook, as it feels like. That's where like YouTube really came into place. And then, when it came to Lorcana and creating content, it was like, man, I just was falling in love with the game a lot. And I felt like the space didn't necessarily, have a person like me. Like I just didn't
Mhm.
see some of these videos that I wanted made that weren't being made, or at least I couldn't find them. They might have been out there. So there was just levels of like, well, I want to make videos. I'd love to make these videos in particular. So, that's kind of where it all started. And there's a lot of people who make, like you said, there's the deck, tech kind of videos. There's a lot of set review, there's pack opening kind of stuff. And I was like, well, I don't really want to do a lot of that stuff because I think there's enough of it.
Yeah.
I think people are doing it. And so I wanted to, there was a lot of stuff that I was learning about the game that no one was like spelling out for people easily. Like I'd listen to some of these podcasts from, our pro community, and you'd have to listen to like the whole 3 hour thing to like get all the bits, and I was like, well, what if
Mhm.
I just took
Yep.
these great bits that I've learned and put them in a 10-minute video or 15-minute video that's way more digestible to the average Joe like me, that's probably not going to win a DLC or anything like that, but can win a set champs, or like can get a little bit more competitive and enjoy playing more competitively. Because I think it can feel like in a game like this that the real competitive nature is unattainable, versus like if you play some other video games or something, there's like a ranking system where you can be like silver or gold, or like there's a way to track progress. And it can feel like if you're kind of new to this game, you don't really know the like path of like, how can I grow?
Yep.
And so that was really like a lot of the focus of the channel for me. Was I really wanted to be helpful to the community. That was like, I just loved learning these things. I wanted to share what I was learning. I continue want to do that. Like I just want to provide helpful stuff to the Lorcana community. I never really wanted, post anything just for the sake of posting it.
Yeah.
And obviously, Lorcana, no one's making it big on Lorcana. So like it is a lot more of like, hey, I'm doing this in my spare time to share what I love and try to be helpful to people. I try to end every single video with some version of appreciation to those who watched it. I'm just very grateful that anyone would even take the time to watch one of my videos. I don't deserve it. None of us do, right?
Yeah.
And so I try to make a value proposition for them. Well, like I want it to be something that's of value to them and helps them, because I think everyone's time is very, very valuable, and that's why I want it to be really helpful. So that's really like why I started in video. Like I just enjoy video along with a bunch of other my hobbies, and then so that's why YouTube and not say a platform like Instagram or something like that. And hugely just love the game and want to help people grow in it as I'm growing in it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, totally agree. It's amazing the number of people that I talk to that's kind of one of their main motivations, right? They love learning about the game. They love learning about, whether it's, actual decks or whether it's just, growing the community, and they feel the need to share that out with other people.
Mm-hmm.
I think we wouldn't have half the content out there if it was just people doing it because they thought they should do it,
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of stuff that, you can kind of tell that there are some videos that people are doing it just because they think they should do it.
Yeah.
There's always going to be those people out there, right? Or those channels, I guess. But it's amazing to me to watch, watch the content on YouTube, listen to podcasts, read articles, watch stuff on Instagram and TikTok, and just see how excited people are about this game and about the community around it, and see that come through in their content,
Mm-hmm.
and really trying to just be open and sharing basically anything that
Yeah.
they can, and you've done a lot of different kinds of things. You've done, like rating, what was it? Let's see. Oh, I like the one with Mr. Burns. The
Mm-hmm.
core is dead to me right now,
Yeah.
before the before the Infinity stuff.
Yep.
And then I think one of your most popular ones was the 5 tips to grow competitively in
Mm-hmm.
Lorcana. So I'm curious about that one. Was that something that you kind of reflected on your own experience growing as a more competitive player, or was it just like, general tips around, here's how to be more competitive, here's the things to think about, or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, when it comes to YouTube, there's some stuff of like, if you want to really reach people and try to give some valuable information, you also got to play a little bit of like the game, so
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily scared of, being a little bit more towards the algorithm kind of title and thumbnail stuff. I never want to do it so much so that it doesn't feel authentic to what the video is trying to offer. So
Yeah.
that's where like maybe some of the branding of the video, but a lot of it was, like I said, it's I was learning lessons and I wanted to share these lessons. Like one of the lessons in that video was I listened to a podcast after Edmund Chu had won an event, and he was on JDZ's podcast, and he talked about who's on the beatdown, and it's this kind of trading card game ideology or philosophy that's been around since the 90s, and I didn't know anything about it. And he talked about it was a magic article and all this kind of stuff, and literally it was like one of the best lessons I ever learned in the game, and I only heard it because I was listening to like a 2 hour long podcast, and it's
That
like this.
one little slice that you
Yeah,
found. Yeah.
and it's like a
Yeah.
wealth of knowledge from people who've been playing TCGs forever. And there's so many people coming to this game that never played any other TCGs. And so that was like the heart of that video was like, I know there are people like me who have never learned these lessons, that don't know what these are. And I want to make it very digestible and like accessible to people. And that's where a lot of the videos come down is like, all right, how can I take something is that I see is possibly very helpful. You talked about that conversation with Mr. Burns. That was really a very seasonal video. It was in a very small pocket of, hey, we're having infinity events, but locals is still core, and it feels weird. And that was really like
Yeah.
the whole video concept was like, what do you do with this? And that was where I was feeling, and I'm like, I guarantee you all the normal people feel this way. Like there's
Yeah.
definitely the people
Yeah.
going to the events all around the world and all that kind of stuff, but like we feel weird about infinity right now because there's no like point to infinity if you're not going to these events. And
Mm-hmm.
that was really what that conversation was. And that's, I used a very clickbaity line of his that the core was dead to him, and it was only for a month. But it
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
and he's a very animated guy that will
Mm-hmm.
it's very easy to clip him a little bit. But like that's these videos, the ones that do well, I think are really closer to some of these like more clickbaity titles and or thumbnails. And I try to make it really hard. I'm like, I really don't want it to be exactly that, just clickbait. Like the
Yeah.
hope is that it is pointing towards a general theme of how I'm trying to be helpful to the community.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny, you mentioned, gaming the algorithm and that kind of stuff. It's an unfortunate kind of fact, I guess, that that those of us that produce content for YouTube, I mean, if you really want to get your stuff out there, you do have to understand how to play the game a little bit.
Mhm.
And and it definitely takes getting used to, because it's not something that's like documented on a nice little page to say,
Yeah.
here's how to best manipulate the algorithm.
Right.
You kind of have to like learn as you go. And so I'm curious, what is one of the biggest things that you've learned in creating YouTube kind of based content?
Yeah. I became a bit of a student of YouTube. Just I've been wanting to make YouTube content for a very, very long time, just because I love the platform so much. I consume so much YouTube. It's just I've been in love with it since middle school. Like it's just you could find whatever topics you wanted and all these kinds of things. And so I've loved the platform, and I've always wanted to make stuff on it. So I've always, if I was going to dive in, I wanted to do it well, was part of
Mm-hmm.
my hopes. or at least well enough. Obviously, when you start doing it, you learn a lot. But and so I became a student, spending time listening to people who do it well. There's some YouTube podcasts and stuff that I'd listen to, like Colin and Samir and some other folks. And it's not necessarily Lorcana related, but it was very like how to understand, not just game the system, but really understand how to create value for people to watch your video. And that the whole concept that YouTube is not a video platform, it's a click and watch platform. And so if they never click, they never watch. And so, some of that stuff I was like, okay, so I'm going to try and always be authentic, but I need to like make it clickable, and the more I watched, it was like people were like, I'm spending half the time of the video I'm spending making the thumbnail. And and I'm like, dang, that's a lot. That's a long time.
That's fair enough.
Yeah, but I became a student of it, watched a lot of YouTube about YouTube. And I always continue, almost every video I'm learning something. I want to try some new editing technique or something like that. And so I'm watching, I edit in DaVinci Resolve, so I'm always watching little DaVinci Resolve tutorials and stuff like that. Been learning a lot about OBS as I'm doing some of these kind of interview style things, and was recording in OBS Studio. And so I'm always like learning that kind of stuff, but really just became a student of how to do things on YouTube, because I just, there's a little bit of like, if you could just post things on the internet and not care that anyone watched them. And I would say, well, then you didn't need to post it ever at all, right? You could have just made it and it sits on your hard drive, or for you to watch later or whatever. There's a level of like, you want it to go out into the ether and perhaps mean something to somebody. That's why, an artist puts it up in a gallery or something of that nature. It's maybe it's a little validation, maybe it's a little bit of ego. I'm sure there's a ton of ego for me. I'm a pretty egotistical guy, but but there's a level of like, I want to make something that's actually good, and that people will enjoy and be they won't feel like they wasted their time. Like I don't want anyone ever to watch a video of mine and go like, man, that was a waste of 10 minutes, or whatever that is. And so that's where I feel like I took the time to try and learn some of that stuff on YouTube.
Nice. Yeah. And I mean, honestly, that goes for any platform out there. There's also stuff that pertains just to podcasts that doesn't pertain to, YouTube, and stuff that pertains to like creating short form content. That I know lots of people that they love creating short form stuff, but it's a real struggle for them to create anything over, 5 minutes or something like that. And it's just like you're saying, it's just kind of this thing you have to learn. You have to kind of flex that muscle. You have to constantly keep growing with that stuff, so that you improve your game, right? You don't want to like create, all your videos using the same like potato camera, from the 1990s or something like that,
Though that is a
mean,
style with the Gen Zers now. I mean, I feel like they're pulling all the old stuff out.
Fair enough. But yeah, I mean, it just, it's nice, especially as a creator that's like really putting your heart into this kind of stuff, to really see it grow and thrive and change. And I don't know about you, but looking back at some of my own early videos, I'm like, oh, cringe. That's not great. Why did I do that? Why did I even put that out? That's not great. Sure.
I look forward to cringing to all of this stuff that I do right now. I look forward to cringing at it, 2 years from now, because it means that you grew, like if it feels the exact same, then maybe you didn't learn anything new during this time.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of creators, they have this drive, right? They have the drive to start the channel, to like put stuff out, because it's not where like on some of the short form content, yes, people just turn on their camera and they start filming and it's just whatever happens. But there, even on that side, there's a lot of people that put in a lot of planning and a lot of preparation to make those videos, make those 20, 30-second videos. it still takes them hours, even though they're not editing thumbnails, they're not editing, an hour's worth of content or anything. There still has to be that level of passion to want to keep doing this and want to keep making it better all the time.
Yeah, I agree. Half of my short term, I've done some short form. I don't love doing short form personally. It's just not, it's not the thing that gets me excited. But it feels like a great on ramp, right? Like I've treated short form as a like outreach tool to like introduce people more to the game. Is usually my hope for it is they'll go, oh hey, I saw this short about this Lorcana game. Let me check it out. But I'm very much that way. Like I make a short. Rarely does a short take me a few minutes to make. Like I'm I'm usually making a short in like 3 hours, 4 hours of, hey, I'm gonna clip or edit and do all these kinds of things. I got the opportunity to do a collab with like Quest with Cole, and I think when he was like, yeah, let's do something together, let's do a short, I'm like, all right, so I'm doing like all this, like I'm taking long form mentality to
mental
the
preparation,
to the thing. Yeah. And so it's just like I'm gonna, all right, we're gonna do this and we're gonna do this, and then like back and forth, and like I'll edit, all this junk, and and so like I just because of the nature of how I think in long form, I was bringing that into short form. And and there's a guy here locally, great member of the community. His handle's I believe Martin Carp, but he's been doing stuff and for a long time, and his stuff is just raw and like uncut, like it's just on his phone, selfie camera mode, like just talking about the game, and people love that. I personally would struggle to like, because I just want to make it like, there's just that's my personality, is like, how can, and not everything I put out is like 100% polished or the best audio or whatever, but there's just a level of like, I like that craftsmanship portion of video editing and creating. And so I get that. And that's not dogging on short form at all. I think it's a different
of course not.
love language, like I feel like it's a another area where, and it has, there's people streaming on short form platforms. I don't even know how that makes sense or works. I'm like, didn't you come here for like 2 seconds? Like that's why you're on this, except for people doom scroll for 18 hours. But
oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, don't get me started. TikTok is the worst.
Oh yeah,
I'll just say that. No, I totally agree. It's just, if you don't have that passion, if you don't want to keep honing your craft, then, I don't know why I keep doing it, but some people don't care. Like you said, Martin just, he just does it. He just sits down, turns on the camera and just starts talking, which is awesome for him, but that's not everybody, and I'm on the same board with you. You got my outline, you saw my topics and everything.
Preparation.
I'm very much the preparer. I want to have stuff kind of laid out a little bit, and and having people like that in the community is great too. Because that's a lot of that stuff, like, those in-depth like deck reviews and, gameplay and all that kind of stuff, that takes a lot of time and a lot of prep work. And some people love it. Some people are happy to do that kind of prep work. Other people, that's like their nightmare. They just want to like, do a short little funny thing, or, just get on and talk to people.
For sure. And like the nature
of
of that usually leads to a heck of a lot more content presence, right? Like, you and I, it'll take us a week or two to make a video, and they got 17 shorts out during that time, and like they're way more present with the community on a day-to-day basis and stuff. So it has its pros and cons, like we may be able to prep and polish a thing that might come off a little differently, but it's definitely not as frequent or as accessible all the time.
Which, it's nice to have the diversity. So
and there's plenty of people that don't even touch long form YouTube at all. All they do is short form. Like I didn't know, for instance, Rebecca, like
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know of her until I saw her casting. And
Hmm. Yeah.
because I'm not on Instagram. Like I just have personal like kind of boundaries with like certain social medias, and Instagram was one of them. And so like I didn't know her, and she didn't make a lot of YouTube stuff, so I didn't see her
Yeah.
as much on YouTube. And I was like, holy cat, like this lady's like really well known in the community. How have I never heard of her? You know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and so there's just this nature of like, I'm just not that target audience, you know, like I'm not on that platform. And that's the same for these different forms of content, is you're going to reach all these different kinds of people that love the game in different ways and are going to communicate with the game and the community in different ways. Like I I mean, like uh, you know, some behind the scenes stuff of like, I missed your message for a few days on because you messaged me on X, you know, and it's just because
Yeah.
like I don't like being on X as a platform. Like,
Mhm.
there's just, it doesn't speak to me in a lot of ways, and I'm on it because I feel like the community is really on X for a lot of things. A lot of updates happen there, but there's also a lot of drama, and so I tend to like, you
Oh
know,
yeah.
avoid the platform a little bit. But the downside of that was like I missed your message for a few days, and I was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," you know. And so I do think that is the beauty of like people making on all these individual platforms and creating and finding, you know, the word niche has been used way too much, but like finding their little pocket of how
Hmm.
they can improve the community, share with the community, whatever value that is, if it's entertainment, if it's information, if it's just vibes, like whatever that is, it's great. And I think we continue to need more of it. I don't think we've hit the like cap of it. If you're watching this and you love Lorcana and you've been wanting to make something for the community to see, do it. Like,
Hmm.
I'm not saying that you'll make a bunch of money or anything. I don't make any money off this thing, but
Yep.
like
Nope.
you
Me neither.
will be bringing positivity to the community, and
Yeah.
someone's gonna be very grateful for it. I mean,
Yeah.
someone's gonna see it and go, "Oh man, like this was awesome. Thank you." And so, if you need that encouragement, you're watching this, you should jump in.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I mean, honestly, that's the hardest part. I think some people get so up in their heads about it and they think, oh, it has to be like this perfect thing. Or, you know, I watch these hour-long interviews with people. And so that's the kind of thing I need to do. I need to measure up to that. And, you know, and it's really easy for people to kind of fall into that trap and never get going.
Mhm.
You know, they're just kind of like, okay, well, maybe tomorrow, you know, when it's right,
Yeah.
I'll do it. You know, and it makes so much more of an impact, in my opinion, when people just kind of get out there and do it.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be polished. It just has to be you. It
Mhm.
has to be real. And you know, and I think everybody really that that kind of like passion, and you know, and I know I keep saying passion when I refer to this, but as that is a huge part of it. But that like authenticity, you know, when you have that kind of thing that comes through in your content, you know, and you can really get a feel for who somebody is, get a feel for their perspectives on things, and you know, and you start to like almost get to know them, sort of,
Mhm.
you know, get to know them, you know, and people develop these habits. They have, you know, weekly podcasts that come out, and it's like, you know, they turn it on and it's like they're sitting at a table listening to friends talking,
Mhm.
you know, and it provides that same level of comfort. But it's all about that authentic self that a lot of creators bring, that, you know, if you just get started and just be yourself, you know,
Yeah.
that'll shine through.
And
So
what's beautiful about this community, like I had an interview with Zenulus the other day, and
mhm.
I was like, you know what's super cool right now in Lorcana is you can kind of get a hold of anybody. Like none
Yeah.
of us are like, you know, real special people or anything like that. So like
Yep.
what's cool is like literally the people that you could be watching, you can actually probably get in contact with. And like if you think they're
Hmm.
cool, like cool, like they probably think you're cool too, you know. Like
Yep.
I had this guy that was like commenting on a bunch of my videos, and we ended up like being in the same Discord at one point, and I was like, Greg, it's you, you know, and like I was like
Yeah.
virtual high five, you know, but like,
Mhm.
and there's just this reality of like the beauty of this community at the stage that it is in completely is like so much of it's attainable and available, and it's, you know, it's a very tight knit community. A lot of stuff gets shared, and you know, there's a level of like, I look at my first videos, and the first few videos were getting, you know, whatever amount of views that maybe aren't as much as they get now or whatever, and some of them still, you know, there'll be flops and stuff that happens and all that kind of stuff, but
Yeah,
like
of course.
you grow, like you got to get started to grow, you know, that old,
Mhm.
the Nike adage, like just do it, you know, like but there's
Yep.
you know, just press publish, like just start, just throw something out there and break the ice, and you'll be more encouraged to keep doing it. I remember I took a little video of like when I hit my first like 2 or 3 subscribers, and I was like, don't forget how this feels, like you, this feels so cool,
Yeah.
you know. I was like, I'm so grateful for this, because you know, when you get your like, I think we hit like 500 subscribers or something. So like 501, 502, 503 don't feel the same as 1, 2, and 3 felt, you know,
Yeah.
but they're this, it's the same number. Like growing by that, I was so excited by then, and every number is a person, you know, and those
Mhm.
people matter, and they took their time to watch something you made. If you know, like that biggest video I made, I think is like 15,000 or 16,000 views. If I was in a room with like those 15,000 people, I'd be like,
That's a lot
what
of
the
people.
heck? Like, y'all watch this? You know, like, y'all came to see
Mhm.
this? Like, that's crazy. And then you
Yep.
take my smallest videos that have like 100 views, and you're like, if I was in a room with 100 people that came to see something I made, I'd be like over the moon stoked. I'd be stoked if
Mhm.
5 people showed up to come like watch a thing that I made. So it's like, don't lose that perspective. Don't get like so caught up in your head of like, oh man, it's got to be perfect, like you said. But just like do it. And if one person watches, that's awesome. It may have been your mom. Who cares? Like that's like it will eventually be more than just your mom. You know, like that's all
Yeah.
of us. Like,
Yeah.
especially if you continue to grow and dedicate yourself. You know.
Yep. I think that is honestly one of my favorite moments whenever I go and look at somebody's video or I'm like watching their stream on Twitch or something, and like a family member hops in and they're like, "Oh, hey mom,"
Yeah,
or or like one of their siblings or
yeah,
something. It's just like a special moment where you're making that connection outside of the Lorcana community to someone else and saying, I care about that person.
hmm,
I want to show them my passion
hmm,
and what I love, and share that with them as well. Because I think it's really easy as a creator to just be like, it's all these like faceless, viewers that are out there,
yeah,
and we don't make those connections all the time. But we'll get comments and stuff,
yeah,
and people will give feedback and everything. But it's still not that same level of connection as
for
you would
sure.
have if it was somebody that you knew personally coming in and saying, "Hey, I, just wanted to check this out and see what
Mhm.
it's all about."
Yeah, and what's super cool too is like the nature of Lorcana being a trading card game that we don't have a legal online client for, is
Yeah.
that you're gonna like play in person, and there's events that you can
Hmm.
go to, and you will meet these people. Like, I have a video with Mr. Burns, and like I met him in person at a DLC, and like we shook hands and all that kind of stuff, and then he was able to come on the channel later, and like all
Hmm.
that stuff is like, that's the beauty of it being like a physical game. Like it is like you can go and meet so many people in this great community in person. I like, if you're scared to go to a competitive event, I would say, man, just go, even if you're gonna drop. Like I was like, just go
Yeah.
meet
Or
people.
just do side
Yeah.
events. Those
Yeah,
are
like
fun
just go
too.
have fun, and like don't be
Yeah.
intimidated by the like competitive nature of it. Like you can go meet a bunch of people that love this game, and it naturally just has things going on with it all the time. Not a lot of other hobbies. Like if you love knitting, there might be one like knitting con, a year or whatever,
Knitting
like,
con.
but it's like, oh, we have,
It's the quietest conference ever.
yeah, but we have events constantly, just by the nature of it that you can go and be at and meet people
Yep.
and really plug into the community. And I think that's an added awesome benefit of it being like, we're in this trading card game together.
Yeah, definitely. So speaking of the community, I'm curious, you've been playing the game for a while, you said you had to duck out for a little bit, but
Mm-hmm.
kind of hop back in. I'm curious if there's any kind of like a certain part of the community, whether it's, the casual side, the competitive side, or anything kind of in between that you think could do with a little bit more of a spotlight
Mm-hmm.
and bring a little bit more attention to it. You think would help like improve the overall community, I guess.
Yeah, I had a conversation with Logan Zenulus
Mhm.
very recently about like Lorcana teams. And
Yeah.
that was an area that I felt like if you're like really plugged in with Lorcana, like of these teams and of the competitive players that are on these teams and things like that. But what I was really, going at is like we do not have enough following, I feel, on the competitive like circuit of Lorcana compared to like other games that have like esports and things of that nature that create
Mm-hmm.
like a second level of excitement. If you're not going to one of these events, like if you just watch the streams for a DLC or things like that, like the viewer count, um, I don't think is very representative to how big our community is. I just don't think that there's a lot of people aware of these things. Like they're playing the game. I don't think that, I don't know how Ravensburger could do this, but like there's nothing in a starter deck that says anything about the competitive circuit, you know,
Yep.
or Ravensburger Play Hub, and you should go to a local game store to play. And like, there's just this like level of, I think there's like there could be 200,000 people who play Lorcana, and there's 400 people watching the stream. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And so I felt like teams is another way to drive up like why I would want to watch, that I would be
Mm-hmm.
supporting some people that I don't necessarily know personally. Like when they do show match games, like I like watching when I see, oh, Zan's playing or Ed's playing or DKP, or like I'm gonna, I want to root for these guys or see how they do. Um, but if it's some folks I've never met before, I may not have a lot of reason to watch the match, unless it's an interesting combo, which they try to do is get some interesting decks on there. But what's funny is like Insulary, like you and me and other people on Twitter and all that kind of stuff, we'd be like, of course we know about DLCs. Like, of course
Right.
we know about, these different people in the space that are pro players. Of course we know these different teams like world class cards and, rare hunters and stuff like that. And I go, I
Mm-hmm.
think we're the minority, everybody. Like, I don't,
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I
yeah.
don't think you're wrong.
And so
Yeah.
I'm like, I want that to be more well known because I think it creates aspiration to get more competitive.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think I used to play and I still play. It's a forever game of mine is Rocket League. It's the car
Mm-hmm.
soccer game, and it very much reminds me of Lorcana. It's like very low entry point but very high skill ceiling. Like it's a very
Yep.
simple game, but it is crazy how good you can get at the game. And watching like the esports was like a ton of fun. It was very enjoyable to watch, and it was like aspirational. It's like, man, I want to get better at this game because I'm watching this.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see it a little bit in our live streams and things like that where you can see the play. But I wish there was a lot more like hand cams and things of that nature where it's like decision making's a little bit more clear because there's levels of like if you saw what the person had in their hand and they chose not to play that, you might question why didn't they, play this turn? Why did they delay to sing under the sea or whatever the thing is? And I think it gets you like, well, oh man, they saw something I didn't see, and
Yeah.
I think that would be a big thing that I would say I wish was more well known. And the hard thing is our biggest creators are talking about it. So it's not like it's underground. You know,
Right,
it's
right.
I would say it's probably far more on maybe in Ravensburger's hands to make it a little bit more well known. I think hosting them at parks would be like foundational and like making them viewable. Like if
Mhm.
Worlds was something you could attend and things of that nature, people would be like, "What is this?" You know, I just came to, you know, or they'd be like, I just am a Disney adult, and then I saw you guys are having your world championship, and I walked by and it seemed really cool. Now I want to play the game more. So there's a level of that. Like we're hiding in convention centers that nobody knows about. So I would say the
Yeah,
competitive circuit, I wish we could get more out there to the masses who play the game.
yeah. Yeah, no, I know it's gotten better. I
Hmm.
will say that. The first couple of DLCs were a little rough,
Hmm.
but they improved them over time. But yeah, I totally agree on kind of the both aspects of it. Like making the community in general more aware that there are these competitive kind of things is, would be huge, right? I think they've relied on it just kind of spreading word of mouth for right now.
Hmm.
It has helped with the lore casts and everything for them to say, here's
Yeah,
an upcoming CCQ or here's the next DLC. But not everybody watches those.
hmm,
Not everybody watches Lorcana content on YouTube or listens to Lorcana podcasts. Some
yeah,
people just play the game because they love playing the
for
game
sure.
and they may not ever know that those are out there. And so yeah, knowing about those, having the aspirations to say, I've won a set champs, or I've top four to set champs for the last, 5 sets. What's next?
Hmm.
Where do I go from here? And not having that clear progression does make it a little difficult.
Yeah,
I know other games, they have like a leveling kind of thing where you go through, multiple things after like a set champs kind of thing, to work your way up.
for sure. And that's
And
really
I think we'll get there
yeah,
someday.
and
But
it's really focused on one side of the game, which I would say is a
mhm,
lot more my focus is like the actual playing of the game. There's the whole collector side and that kind of thing. And
yeah,
personally, I lean way more towards player than collector. But there is just I think there is we have been growing in this. It is for sure. I mean, you look at the streams. I mean, they are watch worthy. Like this is
mhm,
by no means like you're right. Season one, early DLCs. I mean, the quality was much different than the quality is now.
yeah,
The casters bring their A game and they do a great job. And you're right. There's other games that I feel like they do a better job of like showing the progression point to the more competitive angles. Pokemon, it's like if you do well here, you earn points, and those points can earn you a spot or a ticket at these other events and those kinds of things. So I do hope they go that route in in Lorcana over time, just because I think it would be a natural on ramp to help people. Because I do think they have escalated that stuff where it's like this is watchworthy. I just don't know if people know about it, and
yeah,
so
yeah,
but yeah, it is a wonderful game that has been growing and getting better consistently. And I mean, all kinds of stuff. There's obviously been slip ups from time to time, back steps, but that's everything. I mean,
yep,
any game that you play, you're going to have these, and you're going to have times where you don't like the meta. Like all that kind of stuff is going to take place where it's like, man, I just don't love the meta right now. I don't love the most popular deck. All that kind of stuff comes and goes and happens. Um, and there's nothing wrong with that, but
yeah,
it is just a level of like, I think that Ravensburger, you talked about the lorecast, those happen at like 10 a.m. on a work day. And so
yeah,
it's like,
yeah. That's the other
yeah,
thing.
I'm like, come on,
Yeah,
guys. Like, why can't y'all do an evening? I mean, I know y'all have office jobs,
yeah,
but like, do this, I'm like, I have to go watch VOD if I want to watch it. And more often than
yeah,
not, I can get the updates of what was on there, in a shorter time. And, so there's a level of like, there's room to grow in the
yeah,
communication spreading from Ravensburger. And I think they're taking a multi-angle approach of improving the game from every angle, not just going down one laser focused angle. They're not just going, we're just going to build competitive. They're doing
yeah.
a lot more than just that.
Yeah, it's hard to spread it out through the different audiences. It's one thing, like you said, if you can just focus on just the competitive side of the game, that's easier than trying to spread it out to competitive, collected,
Hmm.
collectors, casual players,
Yeah,
random Disney people. I mean, they have to cover the whole gamut, and that is not an easy task, I will say.
for sure.
Well, cool. Well, hey, Eric, thank you so much for spending some
Yeah,
time with me tonight. I really appreciate it. I know we didn't even get to like half the stuff
it's
that I had on
okay.
my list. So, but, you get going in a conversation, you get passionate about it. It just kind of happens.
Yeah.
So,
When I feel like, one,
um,
thank you for having me. Thank you for the
yeah,
what you're doing and what you're making for the community. Thank you for reaching out to new creators. I mean, like, you are doing something that others are not, and it's not just for the sake of novelty. Like, you're doing a very positive thing, and so thank you for that. And there's just a level. I think like the theme of this is if you know if you want to start creating stuff, like, you should do it. Like, if you've
yep,
been a long-term member of the community, make some stuff for us. Like, like,
yeah, I know, right?
we want to hear your point of view, like, share these awesome things that you've experienced in your special way. And we're grateful that you guys, anyone who listened to this, thank you for hanging with us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. I appreciate it. Thank
Yeah.
you. All right. So I do want to end with the same four questions
Yep.
that I ask everybody because I love the answers and it always provides kind of an interesting little insight that that maybe we didn't get during the rest of the interview. So all right, first off, favorite ink and card right now. And that could be card you like to play, card art, any of the above.
Yeah. Pre like Fable, that it would always been like Ruby. And then like Ruby just got killed in like post rotation. So I
Yeah.
would say like Amethyst is, I'm a Ruby Amethyst kind of guy. I love Ruby Amethyst. And so Amethyst is like the second runner up to that. Super Goof is my favorite card of all time. I
Nice.
wanted to challenge for lore. I wanted Ruby Steel to work. I just was like, this fits both objects of the game. You got to like get rid of their guys and gain lore. It's perfect, and somehow it never worked. But Super Goof saw some play. But he's one
Yep.
of my favorite cards. I want him to get reprinted so bad. He's very balanced. I hope he gets back into the game.
Right? You never know.
Mhm.
There could be, and that's also one of the fun things about, the newer sets is, you get a card and it's like really close to a
Yeah,
previous card, but it's like they tweaked it just a little bit.
yeah.
It's not really banning the old card because it rotated out.
Hmm.
It's more of like, hey, we've got this new version of
Yeah.
it for you to play.
Yeah, like
So,
Morph. It's almost the exact same card, but in a different ink
yeah,
color, and
yeah,
the stats are flipped her a little bit. But yeah, I, I would love to have another card like that come into the game. He felt very balanced. He did not feel busted or broken, and I just loved him. Just rush in, gave me some lore. It was great.
yep, yep. Yeah, I can't say I've played a Ruby Steel deck very well or created one that works very well, but I do like the idea of Ruby Steel.
Hmm.
So fingers crossed with Vine. It seems like
Yeah,
we're getting a little bit better
for sure.
about maybe making it happen. So
Yeah,
we'll see.
it's been getting
Yeah.
better. It's been more
Yes,
viable
it
than it's
has.
ever been.
Yep. Yep. Totally. All right. Next question. Favorite Disney movie or movies and why?
Yeah, it's a tough one. There's so many. Um, I
That's
mean,
why I like asking it.
yeah, it is like when I was trying to think through it, I'd have to say there is a movie that most recently in life, I mean, it just hit me like a ton of bricks, and it was Encanto. The songs in
Mm-hmm.
that movie, if you have never listened directly to the lyrics of the song Surface Pressure, then you need to,
Oh
because
my
it will
gosh.
make you die inside. And so,
Yeah.
um,
It's seriously,
yeah,
it's like it's
I
rough.
was weeping, and my daughters know that I cry more in Disney movies than anyone else. There it is, playmat.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite playmats.
Yeah. Encanto's great. I love that movie. I would say of the new Disney like wave, I would say Encanto's definitely my favorite.
Okay. And any of the classic ones.
Classic.
Like
all right.
a little bit older.
Yep.
Like it can be like Lion King classic or before that if you
Yeah,
know.
I mean Lion King's like first and foremost where a lot of it goes. I as a kid loved Lion King 1.5 or like the Timon and Pumbaa focused one. Just because it was just funny. But Lion King was definitely a favorite. There were so many that were I mean, there's nothing wrong with this, but a lot more princess movies and stuff like that I didn't necessarily love as a kid. But Lion King was super cool and definitely loved it. And then Pixar, you know, getting into Toy Story and all that stuff. Like I loved Wild Unknown. I think it was the best set we've had almost the entire game. So getting Toy Story was amazing.
And now we get more Pixar.
Yeah,
so
that's great.
Even better, right? It's like the second most popular franchise or something in the history of Pixar stuff. So, all right, cool. Next one, not really a question, but go ahead and shout out your favorite LGS or LGSs.
Yeah, the store that I spend my most time at is Cool Stuff here in Jacksonville. They've got a bunch of different stores throughout Florida and some other areas. Cool Stuff is great. We've got a bunch of amazing stores here in Jacksonville. Counterspell, Casual Heroes, Coliseum of Comics. I mean, we just have a plethora, which is great. I mean, we get the opportunity to have like 9+ set champs in my city, which is just a great thing. If you want to move somewhere that has an awesome Lorcana community, Jacksonville is a great spot. A lot of great stores.
Nice. Yeah, I am supremely jealous of people that have more than one set champs because I have one that's close and then the next one is 2.5 hours away.
Oh, man. So that's painful.
Yeah, it's kind of rough. But
well, you can come
be thankful for what you have.
Florida for a set champ season, and we'll go.
And I am not opposed. I'm not opposed to going to Florida in certain times of year.
We can go in the fall and winter when it's not as sweaty.
Yeah. I've been down there plenty in the summer. I'm good with that. I'm done. So. All right, cool. And last but not least, where can people find you, your content, and all that kind of good stuff?
Yeah, primarily YouTube. GranolaTCG is where the majority of stuff comes out. I do put some shorts on YouTube Shorts and TikTok. Occasionally, we'll post on X and things like that. Everything's GranolaTCG. But I would say YouTube is my home. That is where I love to be.
Nice. Perfect. And I'll get links for everything, all the LGSs and everything, all your socials and all that stuff. But yeah, cool. Well, thank you again. I really appreciate it, Eric. Thank you so much for spending some time and talking with me. It was great getting to know you and getting to know some of your background and everything.
Appreciate you. Thank you for what you're doing in the community. And thank you for setting time aside to talk with, a guy like me.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you. All right. We'll see you around the community. Well, I was so glad to be able to get together with Eric and talk some about him, his content, and this wonderful community that we're a part of. So, if you like the show, make sure to subscribe, rate, or like the show on your platform of choice. If you'd like to reach out to the show, you can find us on all the socials at Inkwell Lounge, or you can find a full list of links at inkwelllounge.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.